Namaskar. I'm Vimal Watlu, former Chairman, Managing Director of TCIL and the Board Director of Public Police NGO. I welcome you all to today's event of Public Police NGO. We at Public Police NGO have started a webinar series on topics which are of immediate concern to the general public. In the past, we have had webinars on topics like how safe and secure are our deposits in our banks. Is it feasible to have CCTV systems in police stations? Effective implementation of human rights in India? Role of telemedicine in mitigating the current health challenges? And are the under trials in India getting true justice? These have been uploaded on our Public Police NGO channel on the YouTube. So today, the subject of our next topic in this series is handling challenges posed by misleading. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we have been facing an onslaught of misleading advertisements in India for quite some time. These type of advertisements can take many forms across different domains, whether it's in food and beverages, health and wellness, beauty and personal care, technology, misleading claims about features or performance of technology, finance and investment, environment and sustainability, and also real estate, which is a big challenge. So misleading advertisements can be a serious challenge for several reasons. First, they can deceive consumers into making purchase decisions based on false or exaggerated claims, which can harm both the consumer and the businesses involved. Moreover, misleading advertisements can have broader social impacts as well. For instance, advertisements that promote unhealthy or dangerous products can lead to negative health outcomes for people, while ads that perpetuate harmful stereotypes can contribute to broader societal issues like discrimination and inequality. Of course, there are several measures that can be taken against the companies engaged in misleading advertisements. Of course, we talk about industry self-regulation, advertising standards, bodies, public awareness campaigns, social media, and finally, of course, the legal action. While we have a body called Advertising Standards Council of India, today in our webinar, we shall be discussing all the facets of this challenge in detail and what remedial measures can be taken in the Indian context with our esteemed panelists. Today, we are privileged to have our chairman and former Chief Justice of India and the chairman NHRC, Justice KG Balakrishnan with us. Besides this, the other panelists on the webinar are Dr. Vikram Singh, former Director General of Police, Uttar Pradesh, Chancellor, Noida International University, Sri P.K. Malhotra, former Law Secretary, Government of India, Sri Deepak Singhal, former Chief Secretary, Government of Uttar Pradesh, Professor Ashwani Dadich, Director, Manipal Law School, Bangalore, Sri Pradeep Rai, Senior Advocate, Supreme Court, Vice President of Supreme Court Bar Association, Sri Sunil Dang, Editor-in-Chief, The Day After, and also Rajdhani Times, and Sri Devdutt, former Chairman and CEO of Noida Authority, also the Member Secretary of Public Police NGO. To make the webinar more interesting, I would request the participants to pose their questions in the chat box so that they find their answers during the course of this webinar. To begin with, I would request our chairman, Justice Balakrishnan, for his opening remarks. He has a very busy schedule. He's on his way to Chennai and has been kind enough to spare a few minutes of his valuable time for us. So we'll start with our panel discussions today. Our panelists will start this first question with Professor Avinash Dadich. Well, sir, you have been a practitioner of competition law and also teacher in this domain. In your opinion, what are the lacuna in legal framework that pose a challenge in handling some of these unethical companies indulging in such advertisements and getting away with?
Thank you very much inviting me in this exciting webinar and quite relevant. From competition law angle, if you see, the competition law deals with abuse of dominant position. So the idea is that the big firms, the big companies, they should not abuse their position towards the consumer as well as their competitors. So when we say misleading advertisement, see, advertisement is a constitutional right of every company. However, this right is limited. That there's whatever you are saying to your customer and in market that should be appropriate. So the spirit of competition law is giving the equal playing field to all players in market. However, when the big players, when they start putting a big budget on misleading advertisement, it destroys the market balance. Or we can say it really corrupts the market because then the consumer is not in a situation understand and appreciate the real value of that product or service. So in longer term, it really hurts the competitor. When the consumer is not able to understand the market situation or the product's real value, then ultimately it hurts the competitor, the small competitors, and then it hurts the market. Competitor and the smaller firms are also losers. So that's a one aspect. However, competition law doesn't deal with the misleading advertisement. We have given this task to consumer law, and if you see, before 2019, our Consumer Protection Act 1986 was not very much concerned with this misleading advertisement. Misleading advertisement is not a new development. If you see the jurisprudence in European Union or in US, they have developed very strong rules, regulations, and institutions to deal with misleading advertisements. However, in country like in India, where we started taking advertisement or very competitive advertisements seriously only last 8 to 10 years. Okay, so last 8 to 10 years, the competitive market forces companies to adopt misleading advertisement. And when I say misleading advertisement, not necessarily that it's done directly by companies. It can done by social media, by digital media, okay, or by some celebrities also. Okay, and now there's not only celebrity, even the influencer also. So the Consumer Protection Law 2019 talks about the responsibility of influencer and endorsers, the people who are endorsing any product, because we are having a trust on them. Like suppose if I see a photo of Shah Rukh Khan or a big celebrity, then I have some image in my mind. So whatever he or she is saying to me, I like to believe in it. Okay, that's why companies are paying to them. But if you see in 2019, the law introduced, no, they will be responsible. And in 2020, law took place. And in last 1.5 year, I can tell you some interesting judgments. One district court in the Muzaffarnagar, they imposed penalty on Jackie Sraf and Govinda because they were promoting a product, okay, and that product was misleading. So they imposed penalty only 20,000. Okay, the same thing happened in Kerala where they imposed penalty on another actor. So the idea is that the district courts and the competent authorities are already addressing this issue. So in India, the problem is not that we don't have law. The problem is that the law enforcement agencies, including judiciary, are not appreciating the intent of the legislature. The law says that the penalty can be up to 10 lakh, and in some situation it can go to 50 lakhs. And there is some criminal provision also. It can go up to 2 years jail. But if you see in last 2 years, we don't see jurisprudence in our country where these big endorsers are paying 50 lakh rupees, 40 lakh rupees, until and unless we are not hitting their financial interest and name and shame policy where we are really putting their name everywhere. So they will not stop it. Second, this criminal liability, because it's a criminal offense, misleading people, forcing them or motivating them to use a wrong product or a service, it's a criminal offense. Now, at least the law of the land says it's a criminal offense. But still, we are not using those provisions. So I think I suggest that organization like you should do advocacy and awareness at the grassroots level, at the policy level, so that these criminal penalties should be implemented, and the financial penalty should not be 10,000, 20,000, because nobody cares about 20,000.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Thank you very much. Very good opening remarks where you have summed up the whole thing very well. Thank you. Now, my next question is to Dr. Vikram Singh. Well, sir, there is a feeling among the common citizens, particularly those who have been victims of misleading advertisements, that such elements have the protection of politicians in power, and quite often they are hand in glove. As a former top cop of the country with such wide experience in policing and also dealing with politicians, honest and otherwise, how far do you think the impression is correct? And in case you feel it's true, what would be your suggestions for a solution to break this nexus in the interest of common man? Apart from what Ashwini ji has just mentioned, that legal entities are also treating them with kid gloves.
Thank you very much, Mr. Waklu. Dr. Avinash has indeed played it very beautifully and summarized it. A good evening to my all esteemed panelists. And I would say, first, let us understand all the legal provisions. Consumer Protection Act 2019, under which the Central Consumer Protection Authority has been created, which has the authority to impose a penalty of up to 10 lakhs and also discontinue the ad, penalize the endorser, and even prevent him from coming further endorsements for 3 years. The next act is Cigarettes and Other Tobacco Products Act 2003, Cable and TV Network Regulation Act 1995, Drugs and Magic Remedies Objectionable Advertisements Act 1954. All these acts being there in position, but the fact of the matter is that you're very right. The consumer at the receiving end is almost helpless because there is no structured mechanism for redressal of grievances. I, in the police, to your second part of the question, have never felt helpless. I have also incorporated, and Dr. Avinash will bear with it, incorporated the sections of the Indian Penal Code wherever required and have wrote in the top management of the companies, the defaulting companies. You may recall the case of Sensodyne, that it was a misleading ad the world over and it was a fraud of the worst kind. Sensodyne is not the world's best toothpaste. Likewise, in COVID-19, there were so many claims of and other treatments, magic remedies, claiming to have cure for COVID-19, but they were all fake. And then to incorporate the sections of 420 in the Indian Penal Code and other sections, valid sections, also came in handy. And then to say that it is only the distributor or perhaps the seller is only liable. No, the company that is producing the advertisements, jo dikhta hai, wo bikta hai. Both on the print media, the electronic media, the social media, all of them are culprits, and therefore they have a responsibility because they are spreading whatever is there in their arsenal and whatever is being fed to them. Therefore, the liability of those publishing, printing, telecasting, and bringing them on the social media have a lot of. But when you go to the Gangotri and address the problem there with an element of finality, and I would say the top bosses of the company need to be called, given them a dressing down, and then a lesson of a lifetime. Yes, Mr. Waklu, I have never felt helpless. There have been tragic cases where people have been duped. And the consumer law is such that it is only almost like literally and metaphorically, almost like cosmetics. Nothing wrong in that. But it's only for people who understand law, who respect law. But those who are die-hard perverts, I'll give you the example of a product in Uttarakhand, Brit Sanjeevani Sura. Brit Sanjeevani Sura basically is nothing but 40% alcohol passed on as a cough syrup. And it is nothing more than bottling of alcohol and to bypass the local excise law and sell alcohol in the form of Brit Sanjeevani Sura. I can give you any number of examples, but when held properly and incorporated the sections of the Excise Act as also with the IPC, I think there was a deterrence. But then, as Mr. Malhotra has said, there has to be a structured mechanism to teach the consumer what their rights are, how really simple it is. And then consumer education is the most important part. The second part is that in case your grievances are not addressed, what then? How do you fall back upon? Like in the RTI, there is a system that if the basic office does not listen to you, you go to the next level. Then you go to the second level. And it's difficult to find an issue where the RTI queries have not been addressed. Likewise, this is a new concept. The Consumer Protection Act is 2019. It will have to evolve. And I do feel with this brainstorming and the great interaction, we can find ways and means of addressing the loopholes in the statutes and how best to address these larger issues. And my last point, Mr. Waklu, is it is difficult to find a segment in the industry, whether it is education also, claiming 100% placement, whether it is medicine, whether it is publicity. You go to any electronic, every Thursday, every channel claims to be India's number one. How can every channel be India's number one? The system and procedures, how a product can claim to be the world leader when it has not even been medically proven and it is not replicable. These are the gray areas where Mr. Waklu will have to be addressed, plugged, so that the consumer is not led up the garden path and indeed fleeced of his hard-earned money. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. I mean, it's a clear perspective and quite encouraging that, yes, if we have the will, it's possible to get all those aspects of law implemented and take action also. And about public education, yes, that is a very important part of it. My next question is to Sri Sunil Dang. Well, sir, you have been a part of Print Media Services Committee of Bureau of Indian Standards and have proactively worked on misleading advertisements. How effective do you think the intervention of organization like BIS has been? What are the reasons for it not meeting the envisaged objectives, as most of us feel?
जो नई गाइडलाइंस आई हैं उसमें कुछ मैं आपको नई इम्प्रूवमेंट्स बताना चाहता हूं। इस गाइडलाइंस को हम 2020-22 बोलते हैं और इसमें हमने
किनकी गाइडलाइंस?
न्यू गाइडलाइंस टू कर्ब द मिसलीडिंग एडवर्टाइजमेंट इन इंडिया।
Issued by whom?
Issued by the
Ministry of Consumer Affairs.
CCPA. CCPA and CCPA. Okay. So इसके अंदर A to G में the Drugs and the Cosmetic Act 1940, the Copyright Act 1957, the Drugs and Medicines Remedy Act 1955, the Program and the Advertising Code under the Cable Television Network Regulations Act 1995, the Trade Market Act 1995, the Cigarette and Other Tobacco Product Advertisements Act 2003 and the Food Safety and Standard Act 2006 को लिया गया है। लेकिन उसके बाद में भी गवर्नमेंट को ऐसा लगा कि 10 लाख अगर हम पेनल्टी लगाते हैं तो कोई भी एडवर्टाइजर जो उससे करोड़ रुपया कमा रहा है उसको 10 लाख देने में कोई दिक्कत नहीं है। दूसरा, जिसके ऊपर कंपनी नाम देती है वो आदमी को जेल भी हो सकती है, तो वो 3 साल तक की हो सकती है। उसमें भी लोग लेकुना ढूंढ लेते हैं एंड एवरीबॉडी नोज जो आज इस पैनल में है या सुन रहे हैं, दे ऑल आर दी समवेयर लॉ मेकर या लॉ को प्रोटेक्ट करने वाले लोग। ब्यूरो ऑफ इंडियन स्टैंडर्ड के एक नई सब कमेटी और कमेटी बनाकर कहा कि फर्दर रिसर्च कि इनको किस तरह से इम्प्लीमेंट किया जा सकता है, जो होल्स नजर आ रहे हैं, हम लोग उसके ऊपर अभी रिसर्च कर रहे हैं। वी आर इन अ वेरी प्राइमरी स्टेज, वी आर नॉट yet to come with some suggestion to the government or company affairs or lawmakers। लेकिन हमको एक चीज को समझ में आया कि अगर हम इन लॉ को एक अच्छे तरीके से मूवमेंट बनाकर लोगों के सामने लाते हैं, बिकॉज ये लोगों को पता ही नहीं है कि कितने एक्ट्स को इसमें डाला गया है और कितने एक्ट्स को करके एक नया लॉ लाया गया है, कैसे आप अपने आप को प्रोटेक्ट कर सकते हैं। और इसी के साथ साथ में आई विश कि आज जस्टिस जेडी कपूर भी हमारे साथ होते, जो कि कंज्यूमर्स के चीफ रहे में, उनके टाइम में काफी काम हुआ, मिस्टर शौहरी के टाइम में काफी काम हुआ। अगर इस तरह के हम कुछ मूव्स अपने पब्लिक पुलिस अंदर भी लेते हैं.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Now, Malhotra Saab, internationally there have been consumer protection laws which empower consumers to take legal action against advertisers who make false or misleading claims. We have such laws in India too in place, as all the speakers have mentioned, but there are some challenges which they have flagged. But in your opinion, how effective do you think these laws have been from the consumer protection perspective in mitigating the challenges of the common citizens? Malhotra sir.
Thank you, Mr. Baklu. And thanks for making me a part of this distinguished panel, because not only the panelists, but all the participants here, I find, are coming with a vast experience in this particular field. Unfortunately, all of us are sufferers of the misleading advertisements, and I'm not sure how many of us, even those who are considered to be enlightened people in this particular area, have taken this kind of misleading advertisements seriously and have approached the authorities for redressal of the grievances. I think most of us, we ignore कि मुझे क्या लेना है, चलो कोई बात नहीं, चलने दीजिए, चलता है. That चलता है approach encourages these companies, more particularly as Professor Dadich was also saying, and spend a lot of money on advertisement. And on the other hand, there are MSE companies who doesn't have that much money for that kind of advertisement, and therefore the products become uncompetitive as compared to multinational companies. Now, advertisement as such, if we are talking, if for any business activity, I think it is an essential part, and they inform and attract customers about the goods and services which are offered by these businesses. Misleading advertisement as such was not earlier defined, as the previous speakers have also said, but the Consumer Protection Act of 2019 has taken care of it, and the consumer this has been empowered to look into this kind of complaint. And the definition of misleading advertisement is also explained in this particular part. But before that also, there have been regulations and rules which are guided. The United Nations issued guidelines on consumer protection way back in 1985, which were amended in 2015, which mandated all signatory companies for promotion and protection of the economic interest of include the provisions on disclosure and transparency. And I find, so far as the financial sector is concerned, whether it is the Reserve Bank of India, whether it is the Insurance Regulatory Development Authority, whether it is Securities and Exchange Board of India, all of them have come out with their own guidelines, and probably the captions are already given. But only thing is that the caveat which is put on all these advertisements is in so much fine print that even informed consumer like us, I mean, they also ignore this kind of things. Take, for example, if you are using some service on your smartphone also, before you open an app, you are required to agree to the terms and condition there. The terms and condition are running into number of pages, and they are in a very fine print. And if you want to use that app, per force you have to say, I accept, without reading it. And this is happening, and because of that, all of us all get trapped. Therefore, I think not only it is the consumer organizations or the statutory bodies who have been asked to look into this kind of aspect are required to exercise more due diligence, but as a consumer, because these organizations can do advocacy, they can spread awareness, but even after that awareness, if as a consumer we are not taking proper steps and we ourselves are not taking care of our own interest, probably this kind of guidelines or this kind of rules will ought not be of any help. Second point, which I think Dr. Vikram Singh also mentioned about it, that the law enforcing agency, and I think Professor Dadij also mentioned about it, the law enforcing agencies are not insensitive to this kind of economic offenses committed by the companies as they are to the normal criminal law. I think the times have changed. Economy is now in the forefront. It is at the central stage. So all these economic offenses, if they are committed or violations are committed I think the law enforcing agency have to be strict in enforcing, giving, an exemplary punishment for this. I remember that even the copyright, patent, and trademark laws are violated, where either the party is warned only or a token penalty is imposed, which for a big company is nothing, they pay and get away with it. Similarly, with regard to misleading advertisements also, take for example the real estate people. You see big hoardings in the market where they say that you deposit 2 lakh rupees, you will be given possession within 3 years, and before that you will start getting return of 40,000, 50,000 rupees per month, which is in fact misleading, because if you find the fine print, the conditions imposed for this kind of benefit, probably you can never meet. So I think there has to be a more alertness on the part of the consumer, and unless that consumer himself is that much alert, probably you go on making as many number of laws as you want. That is not going to help unless the consumer himself is aware and the enforceability of the law takes timely action is taken and timely enforcement of law is there. Now I find some questions coming here.
Now, my next question is to Shri Pradeep Rai. Do you think that the industry self-regulation as a measure to counter misleading advertisements can be a solution in a country like India, where there is a, as they put it, chalta hai approach on the part of the industry and also patronage of the politicians at times? What are your views on that?
Actually, sir, you see, most of the newspapers and TV channels, they all want the self-regulation. And that's why TV channels fought NBA. And TV channels and other organizations, they are out of purview of Press Council of India. So Press Council, they don't have any jurisdiction over this television channels or any other media companies like electronic media and digital media. So currently they have formed this association, and this association is a kind of, we have a judges like this. Justice Ravindran is nowadays the chairman. Some other former judge was chairman of this committee earlier. But these complaints, when actually brought to those TV channels, then ultimately we find that they are not able to regulate it properly. And sometimes all these TV channels are running this lottery advertisements. When you are running a lottery advertisement, when you are running something which is completely misleading, and you are actually duping the persons, then how can you talk like this? But unfortunately, sir, like Dream 11, that is a kind of gambling. But even Niti Aayog is promoting this. And unfortunately, sometimes we find that so many other organizations who have been responsible for regulating it, they are making statements in favor of these advertisements which are misleading. But in Indian context, I feel that self-regulation is a good idea, but it is actually not happening because they are not able to handle it. And ultimately, there has to be some vigilant citizens group. They have to form a committee and they have to point it out to the committee that you are doing wrong here. You have to be vigilant. You have to be careful. And sometimes they don't have expertise also. And ultimately, what happens to all the TV channels? They are interested only in money making. Their primary goal is to make advertisements. And similarly, I don't want to keep it only up to this level. Even during elections time, which is very important for our democracy, we find that so many TV channels, they are running political advertisements. And in those advertisements, all kind of misleading information, then promises and commitments, it has been shown. And there is no other mechanism to verify it. Self mechanism, if they are willing to do it, then they have to be more careful. There was a time when Honorable Supreme Court had decided that there should be some interference, but because of the assurance of the government and also on the assurance of media companies, it was decided that let NBA handle it. And recently we find that if it is not suitable to the system, you find different kind of reports and you may get your license also suspended, but not on such issues which is in the public interest. So I feel that ultimately this self-regulation cannot work if this mindset is there, and if they are operating like this, they have to be more careful. And ultimately, Justice Honorable Malhotra sir is there, Justice Balakrishnan sir is there, Professor Dadish has already brought so many laws, and including Mr. Dang brought so many light on this. So preparing a nice report, we all can prepare something on which we can actually form a committee which can regulate and which can file the formal complaints to the NBA for this digital committees and also to the electronic media committees.
Thank you, Pradeep.
Thank you,
That
sir.
is the objective. We'll try based on this webinar and also later discussions. We would like to send recommendations to all the stakeholders. Thank you. Now,
Thank
my
you, sir.
next
Thank you, sir.
question is to Sri Devdutt ji. Of course, as a bureaucrat with such a wide experience, you also must have noticed that these misadvertisements promoting products claiming to cure diseases or improve health or change skin tones have been a major issue in India. There have been numerous cases of people being harmed and even losing their lives on this as a result of using these products based on false advertisement claims.
We had so much discussions about misleading advertisement, and so much had been said about all these regulatory and laws. I would like to mention few things that everyone in our country or in the world is being cheated by misleading advertisement, either in a financial sector or real estate sector or in other consumer day-to-day things. With the artificial intelligence approaching very fast, you can put anybody's photo anywhere, and you know that Facebook, Instagram, social media is very, very active, and every moment we are being cheated by the misleading advertisement. Though it is true that the MRTP Act and Consumer Protection Act share the same definition on unfair trade practices, but the similarity ends here. For one, the consumer courts neither have the power nor the infrastructure to investigate sumoto into misleading advertisement, nor take up such cases on their own, as was being done by MRTCPC Commission. They also do not have any investigative wing like the Office of the Director General Investigation and Registration that existed under the MRTP Act. The consumer courts can only adjudicate over complaints filed before them. So this void needs to be filled either by bringing UTP2 under the Competition Commission or by creating a separate commission. I would suggest that national level, state level, district level committees be formed, and these committees, I would suggest that the state level committee, the constitution should be like the Secretary Information and Public Relation of the state should be the chairman, and the member, some representative of DG Police, Social Welfare Department, Women and Child Development Department, and some NGO like Public Police working in that state, maybe also one of the member, academicians, psychologists, sociologists, one each to be nominated by the Chief Secretary, and Director Information should also be member. So this type of committee may be formed, and uska jo function hoga to see whether district oblique level local committees have been formed and are meeting regularly to see whether the authorized officers are effectively performing their duties, to give suggestion, guidance to district oblique local level committees, to take decision on the matters referred to by the district oblique local level committees, and to recommend action and forward complaints against satellite channels, national channels to the Ministry of Information and Broadcasting through the Chief Secretary of the state in cases of violation of Government of India's orders on the programs of advertisement course. I would also like to mention that in United States, in fact, one of the 7 divisions of the Bureau of Consumer Protection deals exclusively with false and misleading advertisement and enforces various laws aimed at emerging truth in the advertising. The false or
No, but
misleading
the challenge is
representation.
that internationally, yes, there are, and
So
there
I
is
would
control also.
suggest that
Yeah,
we should also adopt the best practices which are being
but world
taken in different countries of the world.
countries. Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. for intervention. So we'll go to the next round. I start with Dr. Vikram Singh. Well, sir, as a chancellor of one of the well-known universities in India, what proactive role do you envisage in using youth power of the students in helping consumers facing challenges due to such misleading advertisements?
Wonderful question, sir. Awareness and also awareness, and then also making everybody aware of the basic provisions of law. Mr. Malhotra has very lucidly explained that all of us have been victims to this kind of a fraud, but yes, we do nothing, primarily for the reason because the route is circuitous. Now, for every educated person, it should be his duty to educate five, and this will have a cascading effect so that people are fully aware of their rights. The schedule has a list of certain diseases, many of which are now no longer exist, 14 of them. And there are certain diseases like COVID and AIDS that are not a part of the schedule. These things need to be brought to the notice of the lawmakers so that the laws are updated as a dynamic process. Yes, the law has to be updated, but the bottom line being that the consumer will have to be educated, and a simple do-it-yourself procedure will have to be given to every consumer. And when I say consumer, everybody in this panel is a consumer. And as Mr. Malhotra has explained also, it is very difficult to find an ad that is not in some way misleading and a person who has not been led up the garden path. Under these circumstances, the students, the faculty, and the university have a role to play and to educate and empower. Every education is empowerment, and also every institution like the university, you've given me a wonderful idea, can provide a basic platform for redressal of grievances. It is within the scope of every student and the faculty to go and redress his or her grievances. But when it comes to class 4 and other junior subordinate staff, perhaps they would require some hand-holding, some assistance, and this is where the institution's roles comes. And here, I feel they can play a very proactive role in helping every person. There are any number of misleading ads, and it's difficult to find a person who has not been misled. I'll give you the simple example, another example of the mutual fund. All of us invest, but the mutual fund, you see the ad in almost every channel, and the bottom of the warnings are read in such a fast forward manner. It is difficult for you and me and lesser models even to repeat what the warnings are. But yes, we agree to the warnings and then subscribe to the mutual fund. These are the things and the pitfalls which have to be brought to the notice of average consumer so that they are not misled or beguiled by these fancy ads.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And we look forward to this collaboration with your university to take it forward.
Sure, sir.
And of course, next question is for Professor Avinash Dadich. Dr. Vikram Singh mentioned about, some problems which even the mutual funds, we face, a lot of challenges because of the way the advertisements are put. So there have been a lot of misleading claims about investment opportunities or financial products, including mutual funds, including the claims that they are guaranteed to generate high returns and that they are low risk. But in reality, things are far from truth. What are the remedies, other than legal remedies, available to the victims of such traps?
Mr. I think I must tell you one thing. We are fighting a lost war. This is happening since more than 100 years. It's not going to stop. See, try to understand one thing. All advertisements are misleading. The objective of advertisement by the ad agency is to mislead people. The objective is not to create awareness. If a product or service is good, eventually people will come to know. Nobody is going to spend billions of dollars to promote a good product or a service. That's a point one. I give you a very simple example. I believe all of we associate diamond with romance and engagement ring. So in late 19th century or 20th century, when the diamond mines were discovered in South Africa, there was a flood of diamond in global market. The De Beers still is a dominating company. So the idea was that how to sell these diamonds now. They are in the tons of tons. So there is a New York ad agency in New York, okay, NY10 IR. They created this idea that love, romance, and diamond. So you try to understand that first these ad agencies, advertisement, their objective is to mislead. Now the question that whole state can play to safeguard, to create safeguard for their people. So first we need to understand it's a very tough war. If you see the global trend in US, Europe, still even developed countries are not able to control these ad agencies. Their budget is huge, their black budget is bigger than their, and the soft marketing, soft misleading is more dangerous than hard misleading. What you see in a TV channel or in an advertisement, that's a soft marketing. But what is the hidden marketing which they are doing through movies, through songs, or through different like the OTT channels? That's very, very dangerous. Okay, coming back to this question at the financial market, yes, SEBI is active. I think just like other regulators, they are also trying to. But recently, they issued some guidelines against the YouTubers and the social influencers. They imposed some penalty on Govinda and some other guys that you cannot create. And they issued some guidelines also. I think 2 days back, on the 6th of April, they issued some circular on the SEBI. But practically speaking, I think that's not a real solution. These guys exactly they want it. These regulators, government agencies, they keep issuing these circulars, notices, so that people should feel that these people are under our control. If we really want serious discussion, I think we need to set up the civil society like this agency and other people who have no commercial interest in their businesses and their ecosystem to create social awareness and put heavy penalties on them. See, it's all about money. Until unless we are not imposing penalties like 200 crore, 500 crore, 1000 crore, it's not going to change. If we keep talking about lakhs in this market, it's just like a cat and, like, see, this is the way Europe and US, they are able to control it. In France, they have banned all advertisement relating to green fossil. Okay, so it's a tough war. I'm just warning you. I'm just trying to spoil the party that we should not believe that things are under our control. These rules, regulations will are going to change something substantial. Enforcement is again a big part in India, but even at the rule making process, if you don't put strict deterrence through the financial and criminal liabilities, things are not going to change.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much, Avinashji. There is only one part I don't agree, that is that all advertisements are misleading advertisements. We'll have a discussion on that offline maybe sometime. But of course, I respect your overall perspective. I mean, it's been very informative. Thank you. Now, my next question is to Sri Sunil Dang. As a veteran in the domain of journalism and press, could you cite some instances where press has successfully stemmed such misleading advertisements in the interest of consumers? What role do you think that social media can play in preventing such advertisements?
You see, I'm very much concerned because I have three roles right now. First role, as a publisher, I should not publish that type of the advertisement. Second, as a publication, if I am not publishing, then how the revenue comes. Third, the regulator. वो क्या रहा है कि रेगुलेटर ने बहुत ही बढ़िया लॉ को इम्पोज किया एंड एवरी डे हमारे पास में उनके नोटिसेस की कॉपीज आती हैं और विड्रॉल ऑफ द एडवर्टीजमेंट्स भी आ रहे हैं. कभी 3, कभी 15, कभी 18 एक दिन के अंदर विड्रॉ हो रहे हैं. लॉ 10 लाख से 50 लाख तक की पेनल्टी भी है, छापने वाले पे भी, छपवाने वाले पे भी, बनाने वाले पे भी. लेकिन अवेयरनेस इन द पब्लिक नहीं है. जैसे आम अभी बात हो रही थी, उस बात में ही अगर मैं लेकर चलूं तो आई पर्सनली से कि ये चीजें पब्लिक डोमेन पे आनी चाहिए. पब्लिक को पता होना चाहिए कि इफ समबडी चीट विद यू, देयर इज अ मैकेनिज्म. जैसे सेबी की बात कही है, सेबी में भी ऐसा हो रहा था कि आप इतना म्यूचुअल फंड में दे दीजिए, इतना % आपको मिल जाएगा. जबकि आरबीआई ने एक कैपिंग लगा रखी है कि इससे ज्यादा आप नहीं दे सकते हैं। वो कैसे वो डबल हो सकता है, ट्रिपल हो सकता है।
मतलब प्रेस क्या रोल प्ले कर सकता है
मैं
इसमें?
उसी पे आ रहा हूँ। वो बड़ा वाइटल कर रही है कि धीरे धीरे उन लोगों को एक्सपोज कर रही है। और नंबर ऑफ टाइम अगर आप एनसीएलटी जाएं, प्रदीप राय जी भी बता सकते हैं आपको, या बाकी लोग भी बता सकते हैं कि वो कंपनियां अब बैठ गई हैं जो कि मिसलीडिंग एड करके पैसा कमा रही थी। जैसे कि आप रियल स्टेट में देख लीजिए, कम से कम नहीं तो मैं देख रहा हूं लगभग 200 से 250 बड़ी कंपनियां लगभग हजार हजार करोड़ के डट्स को लगाकर बैठी थी।
जी
मिसलीडिंग एड्स थे, धोनी साहब यहाँ रहेंगे, यहाँ पर स्नूकर साहब रहेंगे, यहाँ पर F1 का दी बेस्ट चैंपियन रह रहा है, और वो कह रहा है कि मेरा घर यहाँ पर है, मैंने इसलिए लिया बिकॉज सिक्योरिटी अच्छी है, पानी अच्छा है, हवा अच्छी है, रहना खाना अच्छा है। तो वो सब सुनने के बाद मैंने 10 करोड़ रुपया लगा, एंड व्हाट आई गेट ओनली दी आई एम फेसिंग दी केसेस इन एनसीएलटी की। ये तो वहां पहुंच गए कि मेरे पास तो पैसा ही नहीं है गवर्नमेंट को देने के लिए।
जी
तो इन चीजों को जब तक कि हम एक पर्टिकुलर बड़ा फॉर्म बनाकर नहीं लाएंगे, अभी तो हम 20-25 लोग यहाँ पर हैं, हो सकता है 100 लोग हों, मैंने देखा नहीं कितने लोग इसको देख रहे हैं। जब तक आप इसको एक बड़ा कॉन्क्लेव वे में नहीं लाएंगे और उसको आप मल्टीप्लाई नहीं करेंगे डिस्ट्रिक्ट वाइज,
जी
ये एक मूवमेंट नहीं बनेगा। और मूवमेंट बनाने के लिए आपको सारे बाकी काम छोड़ने पड़ेंगे।
जी आई थिंक
डेडिकेटेड
वो
टीम
मिलके
आपको
हम
यहाँ
ये
लगानी
काम कर
पड़ेगी।
सकते हैं। बिल्कुल बिल्कुल। जी
तो आप भी कह सकते हैं, रिक्वेस्ट कर सकते हैं कि भाई मेरे कहने से आप 50 लोगों को कहिए, 50 में से कम 5 तो कहेंगे ही
जी
इफेक्टिवली। जेन्युइनली दे आर सफरिंग लाइक मी। मैं
हाँ
भी एक सफर कर रहा हूँ एक बड़े कॉर्पोरेट हाउस के हाथ से।
नहीं साहब, हम सब जैसा कि वो डॉक्टर
तो
विक्रम सिंह जी
मैं
बता
इसको
रहे थे कि
पर्सनल,
हम सब सफर कर रहे हैं कहीं ना
मैं
कहीं।
पर, मैं इसको पर्सनल अपने इन वेबिनार्स में नहीं डिस्कस करना चाहता हूँ। आई एम फेसिंग एंड आई एम, दे आर फेसिंग माई म्यूजिक ऑल्सो,
जी
क्योंकि उनको समझ में आ गया कि हमने गलत लोगों के ऊपर हाथ डाल दिया।
जी
तो हमें उस चीज को जब कंज्यूमर को जब तक नहीं बताएंगे, और ये लॉ आपको मैं सही बता रहा हूं, अगर हम इस लॉ को प्रॉपरली रीड आउट ही कर लें तो हमें कोई चीट नहीं कर सकता।
जी थैंक यू वेरी मच। नाउ माय नेक्स्ट क्वेश्चन टू प्रदीप राय जी। Uh, though it might be wrong, but there is a public perception that there is an ecosystem with vested interest at play in protecting such elements who indulge in daylight robbery like this. I mean, speaker after speaker, everybody has mentioned about it. So, as a senior advocate of Supreme Court, in your opinion, what are the lacunae in the legal framework that need to be plugged? Next question to Malhotra Saab. As a former law secretary, what policy legal framework changes would you like to recommend to the government to mitigate the challenges faced on account of these uh, problems due to
Locally, so far as the law is concerned, necessary changes have been brought from time to time, and invariably there has been improvement on the earlier legislation. Like the earlier Consumer Protection Act didn't have any definition of the misleading advertisement and how the process is to be pursued, that was not mentioned. But the Act of Consumer Protection after 2019 has made provision of it. Earlier, there was no provision of Central Consumer Protection Authority. Under the new law, the new Consumer Protection Authority has been constituted, which has been empowered to impose fine and even also pursue the prosecution matter against the violator. One point which I would like to highlight here, which you also mentioned, Mr. Baklo, with reference to what Professor Avinash Dadish was saying, he just made a general statement that every statement is misleading. That was just a general statement. But if you're talking about a misleading advertisement, then it must fall within the definition given under the Consumer Protection Act as defined in the Consumer Protection Act. So misleading advertisement definitely pose a significant threat to the consumer rights, as they falsely cause consumers to purchase goods and avail services, as Mr. Sunil Dang was also mentioning, that avail services which they would otherwise not have. Because advertisement says so and so is coming, therefore you thought if he has bought it, it is worth buying. Why should I also not buy it? So advertisement that use fine print and hide crucial information pertaining to product and services mislead consumer, and the National Consumer Court as well as the other courts have been taking note of what. Devdatji also mentioned that probably because the courts doesn't have, National Consumer Courts doesn't have that kind of power. I think that to some extent has been taken care of under the Consumer Protection Act of 2019 by constituting the Central Consumer Protection Authority. And what Pradeep Raiji was mentioning about self-regulation, self-regulation is in fact already in place for many years. This council was constituted. The council was constituted way back in 2015. The name of the council, I'm forgetting. It is the Advertising Standards Council of India. This was constituted way back in 2015, which is a voluntary self-regulatory organization, and its aim was to regulate the advertisement contents. And the participants of this particular organization or the member of this organization are advertisers, advertising agencies, media, and allied professionals. And the objective of this particular council was to maintain, enhance public confidence by 4 means. What are those 4 means? Ensuring truthfulness, honesty of representation and claim made by through the advertisement. Advertisement is not offensive to generally accepted norms and standards of public decency. Then safeguarding against indiscriminate use of advertisement of goods and services hazardous to the society. Advertisement observe fairness and competition. So all these elements are included. But howsoever good the law may be, howsoever good the regulatory agency may be, unless the law is properly implemented in the spirit in which it has been enacted, the law is of no use. The same statement was made about the Constitution of India when it was being adopted by the Parliament. And the architect of the Constitution, Mr. B.R. Ambedkar, said, how bad or good the Constitution may be, ultimately its effectiveness will depend on the people who are going to implement it. I think the same thing applies to the consumer protection laws also. Laws all in place, how best we are going to implement it, and how much awareness we have created among the users. And after that awareness, if I am the sufferer, how best I am making use of the system which has been made available to redress my grievances. If that is taken care of, probably the law will serve its purpose well.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. I mean, you have summed up the whole thing very well. And of course, I come to Sri Devdatji. I mean, given your experience in the government, would you like to add something more to the perspective which Malhotra Sahab has already mentioned? आपका इतना एक्सपीरियंस है रहा है गवर्नमेंट में, तो जो अभी मल्होत्रा साहब ने पॉइंट्स बताए, he has summed up everything practically, तो आपको कुछ ऐड करना है उसमें?
देखिए, मल्होत्रा साहब ने जो बताया है उसके अलावा मुझे बस एक ही बात कहनी है, हमारे जो कोर्ट्स हैं वो अच्छा वर्क कर रहे हैं, हमारे जो डिफरेंट एजेंसीज हैं सब अच्छा वर्क कर रहे हैं, लेकिन जब तक पब्लिक के अंदर अवेयरनेस नहीं होगी अबाउट देयर राइट्स और किस तरीके से कैसे कहां पर कौन ठगा जा रहा है, सारे लोग ठगे जा रहे हैं। मतलब कोई भी ऐसा व्यक्ति नहीं है जिसको कि मिसलीडिंग एडवर्टाइजमेंट पर जिसको न ठगा जा रहा हो। तो हमें ये भी देखना होगा कि किस तरीके से एक मूवमेंट हम चलाएं, मास अवेयरनेस क्रिएट करें, और वो हमारा एनजीओ कर सकता है कि व्हाट शुड बी द मोड ऑफ अप्रेंटिस, किस तरह से होना चाहिए, कैसे हम लोग आगे बढ़ें। पब्लिक अवेयरनेस इज अ मस्ट. That is all which I want to say.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. And we are now towards the last part of the webinar. There's a question and answers. Of course, I don't find any question in the chat box which has not been answered. But if anybody has any question, please mention also to whom it's directed at.
I am Tapan Majumdar from Kolkata. I am in the social domain for last 22, 23 years. And
Yes,
my impression is that I am not a pessimist. I have already mentioned in my chat my point. It is very difficult to arouse and aware common citizens. That is to be taken into account. I am not a pessimist, let me repeat. But these people, how to get them across and to how to tell them and put it in their mind that you are losing. It is very difficult. We have to improvise some method. That is my idea.
yeah, we sort of appreciate your point. There's no doubt about it. And as has been mentioned by most of our speakers, we'll at the NGO try to formulate a particular document based on today's discussion and further discussions, and see what best can be done. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. My regards.
Any other question?
My question is, it has come out very clearly in the discussions that there is no dearth of law, is a question of how to increase awareness, and I am sure public police will do much better in form of bringing out a document. My question was that not only misguiding advertisement, there are certain things like doctors and hospitals, they are not supposed to advertise. You go to any road, any city, full of advertisements. So what could be done to prevent such kind of things? That is my, any panelist may like to respond.
Okay, thank you, sir. Anybody would like to respond to that?
Well, if the doctors are violating any of the laid down norms, the complaint can be filed to the Medical Council of India. And in case the rules are violated, the Medical Council of India will take appropriate action. That is the existing remedy available. But
sir, there is no Medical Council of India now.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Then of course, as a consumer of the service, you can always approach the consumer court, because the power of the consumer court is much wider than the Medical Council of India or any other such organization.
No, actually, to the best of my knowledge, the old Medical Council of India has been scrapped, but there is a Medical Council which is active at present. So I think Malhotra Saab's suggestion is quite valid. I think that is the best forum to address it.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. So I think...
may I say a second point, sir, with your permission?
Yeah, quickly, sir. Yeah, please.
Just to illustrate that how we forget so nice guidelines from high courts and Supreme Courts, that Good Samaritan case we have forgotten. Good Samaritan guidelines. So we are the social groups and NGOs. I should not, say big things about us. We have to be very active. That is the only way I see, sir. That is all. My regards.
I fully appreciate your point, sir. I mean, fully valid. That's the gist of the whole thing. Thank you very much.
Just forgotten. Everybody has forgotten it. That's a nice guideline. That somebody falls in an accident and that certificate and all that, nobody cares. So we must be very strict in our work. We must be very active, sir.
Thank you, sir. So, I mean, well, ladies and gentlemen, it's been a very interesting panel discussion. And of course, all the panelists have given wonderful sort of comments and remedies. And we at Public Police NGO will try to work out all the details that have been discussed today. And we will send our recommendations to all the stakeholders for further action after collaboration with everybody. I would like to thank all panelists, Dr. Vikram Singh, Shri P.K. Malhotra, Shri Pradeep Rai, Professor Avinash Dadich, Shri Anil Dan, and Shri Devdatji for participating and adding to this, adding value to this webinar. I would like to thank the organizer, Shri R.K. Maheshwari, CEO of the Public Police NGO, for initiating and coordinating this webinar series. Now I'll request him for his closing remarks. Thank you, Mr. Maheshwari.
Thanks to all panelists and the persons who have participated in this webinar. One thing I want to say that we should continue a series of this on this subject, and we must create a committee or a research committee so that an individual cannot do so much of work. As an NGO, we can aware them that these advertisements are misleading, and for this, a research committee should be made. And we should write to the advertisers and advertising agencies and the persuaders that you must think before taking any persuasion or any advertising. And we should also write to the government that this is going to happen, and our NGO is working on this particular subject. And we make a committee for that as an NGO, and we do and aware the people. And for that, a continuous webinars or seminars are required. Thank you, all the panelists, and
thank you. Thank you, Maheshwari. Now I would request everybody to, if possible, to switch on their videos so that there is one screenshot of everybody's photograph available here. Okay, so I think I would like to thank all the participants who have sort of...
At the end, I would like to pay my regards to Mr. Bimal Baklu for conducting this webinar in such a wonderful way. It was extremely interesting. You had been very, very successful in carrying out this webinar in the most beautiful and most successful manner. And all the participants, all the speakers, they were extremely well, they spoke very well. And we think that in coming days, we will have another webinar, and we will also organize one good seminar over this.
Yeah, one seminar, sir, need to be organized.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Devdutt sir, for all your kind words. I'm so grateful. Thank you very much. So, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank all our participants who took their time off to be a part of this webinar and make it so interactive and lively. Those who have missed this webinar due to their other commitments today can watch it on the YouTube channel of Public Police NGO. We look forward to being with you with the next webinar sometime next month. Thank you for being a part of Public Police NGO webinar. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.